What is up, y'all? Welcome to the American Peloton. I am Jonathan Crane. I am a mediocre Cat 2 cyclist out of Birmingham, Alabama.
And I am Ben, a former elite mountain biker, head coach at Skyway Cycling, and team director at Skyway, presented by Domestique Coffee.
And
Huge week.
yeah, we got
Yeah.
so much stuff this week. So we
Yeah.
were at Speedweek, and I'll go ahead and just set it up top. This is going to be the Speedweek episode, all other things that happened this week, which there was also a bunch of other stuff this week, is going to kind of take a back seat because you and I or other members of our team were at all of Speed Week here and there, so we got a
Yeah.
lot of firsthand stuff to go over.
Yeah. It was fun. I mean, what is it? 8 races in 9 days, 7 races in 9 days, something like that. It's hard to beat like that amount of crit racing, a lot of drama happening as you would expect.
Yeah.
We got the showdowns we were hoping for with a lot of the big teams. So just, I mean, in my opinion, one of the best speed weeks we've gotten in a really long time.
Yeah, there was a lot of energy around it for sure. You said the showdowns, there were some showdowns I was hoping for that we didn't get. We didn't see a full Legion squad. We saw like a little bit more of a Legion squad than we've seen. We didn't see the Legion Miami squad and the Legion Aviators Austin squad. Didn't
Sure.
see either of them out in force. But then we did see, Texas Roadhouse was there for the first weekend. Butcher Box was out in force, which was like
Yeah.
not one I was fully expecting.
Yep. We saw Automatic. Miami Knights were there, full squad. Like they were really strong. Full American Cycling,
Yeah,
which one,
ACG.
which was one of the better teams. Like, yeah. So we got crazy showdowns, but not like really wanting to see like a little bit more with the Legion squads. I say squads being Austin, Miami, Los Angeles.
Yeah.
Didn't really see that, but we saw some really good showdowns and racing aside from that.
Yeah, there are so many good teams this year. So many like, teams that are I think paying their riders decently and like racing full
Hmm.
calendars and racing at a really high level that even without like all of the teams we just mentioned, like, oh, we were hoping to see them, there was still like such competitive racing. We didn't see Project Echelon out in force. So first thing, and I guess first thing, biggest thing we've talked about the most, Athens Twilight back on the classic course, not as hilly of a course this year. Insanely large crowd. Like
Yeah,
I've I think I've
right.
been to 4 or 5 Athens, and this was like maybe the biggest of all of the ones I've been to crowd wise.
Yeah, I think the last one I'd been to was 2018, and this was definitely way bigger. Like, yeah, this is one of the bigger ones. I think having it on the classic course helped. I think people almost have like muscle memory to go to Georgia Theater.
Yeah,
Um, so yeah, huge. I mean, the biggest race I've seen in a long, long
and
time.
in the amateur fields were all like close to, if not at the field limit. We had like 100
Yeah,
guys in our races, which was more
yeah,
like it's been like 60 or 70 the other years I've done it, so like big fields. But this year we
yeah.
were actually maxing out.
And we had like international squads in the 2-3. Like
Yeah,
there were
yeah,
teams from
Colombian
Canada, a
squad, Canadian
Colombian
squad.
team. I think we had some like weird like Belgian team in there. Like it was so bizarre that it was weird to have like international talent in a 2-3, but that's the kind of talent that Athens draws.
Yeah, we've talked up Speed Week and Athens a lot. It seems like people are listening. Also, I got to say, shout out, a ton of people came up at Speed Week throughout the week and said they listened to this show, watched this show, and yeah, met a bunch of cool people this week. I was gonna like shout you all out individually, but literally there were too many to do that too. So if you talk to us, what's up? Thank you, appreciate it.
Yeah, for sure. I don't even remember, and I talked to way less people than you did. So yeah, it's
So
crazy.
we had some really good racing at Athens though. I don't say want to say I was worried, but like I didn't think it would be quite as dynamic since we're back to the classic course, which is more of a straight up four corner, a normal crit course. I thought there was more chance of like the classic thing of some 1 and 2 man breakaways go, they sit up there for a few laps, they get pulled back. ends in a field sprint, and that is not what happened at Athens at all. We
Not
had
even close.
not even close. 40 something minutes in, around the halfway point, we had a big move go up the road with most of the teams represented. Two guys from ACG, one from Miami, Brock Mason in there again. Brock was one that, we've been talking him up, and we were watching this breakaway go, and I was like, Ben, we're going to look so smart because we keep talking about Brock and he keeps getting in every breakaway.
Yeah, he was riding so well. Yeah, it was a little bit of a bummer. Apparently, there was a free lap issue and he got penalized a lap, so he ended up being scored as with the field. But
Yeah, his
I mean,
seat post
so strong.
his seat post was slipping apparently, and they didn't give him the free. He went in and took a free lap, and they disputed something about the timing of his free lap, but
So,
regardless, he was in a lot of breaks.
from what I heard from Matt Guevara at LaGrange the following day, was he got caught something around that crash caused his seat post to slip, and he didn't notice for like 2 laps. Went to go in and fix it, but because he didn't fix it on the same lap that the incident occurred, they didn't want to give him the lap. They were being really strict with free laps at Athens, I will say, because
Yeah,
even someone on our team who was caught behind a crash went to go take a lap, and they were like, "Yeah, you can't take a lap. You didn't crash," and we're like, "That's not the rule." So yeah, they were oddly strict at
yeah,
Athens for free laps this year.
yeah. I think with field sizes like that, you got to kind of clamp down. But so I think maybe the most interesting like tactical thing of the week happened. We just watched it. We're watching some of the Athens footage go across. If you're watching with us on the YouTube right here, but we just saw it happen where a break got away without anyone from automatic. Automatic went to the front of the field and they pulled the field just close enough that two of their riders, including Thomas Gibbons, could jump across. As soon
Yep.
as they jumped across, they shut it back down again and let that gap go back out. So rather than pull it together and then have like a full reshuffle, they kind of just sent two guys across, which
Yep.
was a huge tactical play from them. It was good to see them like right off the bat kind of firing on all cylinders. And we didn't, that had set me up to be like, oh, they're going to be like the scrappy hit squad of the week, and they really didn't reach those heights again. But it was, Athens is the biggest stage, so if you're gonna like play your cards somewhere, I think that's the place to do it.
Yeah, yeah, for sure. They played a beautiful race. Just they did it, and then there was also a weird like tug of war in the group because there were teams that wanted that break to lap up, teams that wanted it to stay out, and so the field never got one consistent speed going. There's a bit of tug of war, like the gap would go in and then go out, and it made it really fun because we didn't know what was going to end up happening until they ended up making contact with like 10 minutes to go, maybe.
Yeah, so that group did end up lapping up. The a big breakaway lapped up, and then they sprinted from that breakaway. And
Well, I will say Fergus Arthur was in that break on Texas Roadhouse. He ends up once they end up getting caught, he goes and sends another flyer. So he was
yeah,
like not trying to sprint that, and ended up getting caught maybe with like 5 to go. Like it looked like he might stay out there. Got caught at 5 to go. And they ended up doing the bunch sprint from the group, but it was really fun to watch. I mean, we were there. People were talking, hanging out. It was just a really fun race to watch.
yeah, Athens was a really good one. I was looking for the results. I want to get the results in front of me so that I'm not speaking out of school when I start running it down. I will also go ahead and set the expectation that because I was racing the 2 3s, I missed a lot of the women's racing because the women's race would start as I was kind of like trying to get some food down or go to the hotel and change, or just like laying on my back in a parking lot or whatever, and then I come back and just kind of catch the sprint of the women's race. With that in mind, I think the Legion train got a lot of those sprints throughout the week, so
Yeah,
unsurprising there. But yeah, I don't have as much in depth. I didn't get as much firsthand experience with the women's race because I would walk up on a race that was in progress, and I didn't see it all unfold as much.
Yeah, the women's race was really fun to watch. Legion Legion's women squad was there pretty much almost a full squad. Then we had Denver Disruptors and Miami Knights, both with full squads. All of those three squads are really on the same level. So it was really fun racing to watch. They were really battling for position and making it just a really fun, dynamic race. Alexis Ryan, who's somewhat of an Athens native or resident, pretty much a hometown figure there, ended up taking the win for Legion. Second place, Andrea Sear from Miami Knights, and third place, Erica Zaveda from Denver Disruptors on the women's squad. So that's the women's podium. Just again, fun racing. I think having an Athens native win just elevated those crowds even more, like a home team kind of thing, you know?
And what was the men's podium? Do you have that in front of you?
Yeah. So the men's podium looking like, all right, Brian Gomez from Miami Knights taking the win. Danny Summerhill from American Cycling Group, which Danny Summerhill, former winner of this race, crit legend, OG. And then Robin Carpenter of Legion of Los Angeles rolling in third place there. Former human powered health rider, more of a stage racy kind of guy. So it was kind of cool to see him, mix it up in a crit and get a result there.
Yeah, Carpenter was looking good throughout the week. I guess we're not going to go
Yep.
like chronologically through the full week, but I want to just kind of like mention the highlights that stuck out to me since there were 8 races. So I'm just going to like talk about what was interesting, but the next day at LaGrange, Fergus, who was looking real strong at Athens, he you were watching it. At what point did he go solo? He had a long
Oh,
solo break, right?
it was like 20 minutes in. It was so early. Um, he ripped it, and I don't know, like if some of the teams knew Texas Roadhouse wasn't going to do the full week and just kind of went, "Oh, it's fine," or if they like actually couldn't catch him because he was ripping super fast, stayed out for 40 minutes. Like that's a crazy effort.
That is a course that, in my mind, for those of you that don't know, it's got a really technical. It's like a downhill into a little right left chicane that the right left makes that left hand corner more than 90 degrees. And it's like
Yep.
in that more than 90-degree corner, you go from downhill to uphill. And
Yeah.
you can probably take that faster than anyone else if you're by yourself and you can like consistently hold speed through there. Um, yeah,
Yeah, because they were braking pretty hard. Like we were standing on that corner, and you could just hear brakes squealing, tires sliding because they were locking up wheels. So
right.
if you're solo, I mean, you can probably take that a good 3-4 miles an hour faster than the group can.
Yeah, not to take anything away from his effort, but it was just a course that like it lent itself to that type of being solo rather even than like a breakaway where you're rolling turns. There really wasn't anywhere on that course to like roll consistent turns and get a good draft because it was all kind of uphill or downhill. So it was
Yeah,
sort of just intervals of like you're going up, you got to go hard, you're going down, you got to rest and then hit the corner well, and you just do it all over again. So
yeah. And even on the downhill, you couldn't rest much because that was the only place to move up really. Because I
right,
mean, we like you would go pretty much full gas because this coming through the start area is like 2%. So like you're not getting much draft anyways.
right.
So that downhill, I mean, there was pretty much no rest unless you were comfortable losing wheels on that downhill.
Right. That's what I'm saying is like the group doesn't have a big advantage. Like
No.
there's never a point in the group where you can kind of like get a big draft and like sit in the wheels comfortably. It was
Yeah.
all pretty uncomfortable on that whole course. So a good one for a
Yeah.
solo flyer, and that put him in the overall lead after that day, but then he was not doing the rest of the week. So I think when he left, that put Carpenter into the lead going into the third day, right?
Yeah, that's correct. I know they tried like once they realized Fergus was in the lead and he had a pretty big lead after Athens and then this race. I think they tried because they kind of put out a thing like, "Hey, we want to defend this lead, but we just can't make it work with family and work and stuff." So they at least like tried in post to make it work. But yeah, Robin Carpenter was second after LaGrange inherited the lead there going into Union City on day 3.
Texas, that makes sense. Like Texas Roadhouse is a little bit more of a jobber team. Like most of those guys have other jobs and stuff, and they're
Yeah.
well supported, but they're not a huge team. So then we had a day off, and then we had Union City. Was it Union City, Peachtree City? It's like scrambled in my mind.
Yeah, Union City was on that Tuesday. That's the triangle course.
Yes, that's the Dorito.
Yep.
So Union City the next day. I think the thing that stuck
Yeah.
out to me, a few things like storyline wise for the overall week, is Brock Mason again, super active. And then this was the first one where Jeremiah Stoller kind of showed himself, which I think we were
Yep.
talking about this, like the overarching storylines of the week. And Jeremiah Stoller from Nashville local, this was kind of his coming out party, the way that it was last year for Brock Mason. Like
Yeah.
that was a both of these like local guys that I knew about from racing in the Southeast before this. Jeremiah's in my video from one of the Music City crits last year. I think he got like fifth, and I was like seventh or eighth, something like that. So
Yep.
a guy that I've raced with, seen around, but he's just like on a completely different level this year and had crazy results all of Speedweek. But that was his first big one was
Yeah.
the Dorito course, the Union City.
Yeah, I remember he was low key enough to where even like Alabama guys, regional guys, when he showed up to Sumatonga this year, people didn't know who he was. They're like, "Who's this guy on Nashville local?" And then people who knew him were like, "Oh, hey, yeah, y'all are kind of screwed." And then
Yeah,
he won, but yeah, he's pretty low key going into this.
yeah, definitely a guy who like was not on everyone's radar, but everyone learned the name by the end of the week.
Yep.
He got at least one win throughout the week with going. I believe it was Union City where he went for the Gambler Preem, a thing that you never see happen. There was a Gambler Preem, which is a Preem with two to go. So he went for the Gambler Preem, and it's normally a lot of money. And the gamble is you're spending all your tickets right before the finish. He went for the Gambler Preem. The other guys in the breakaway kind of looked at each other, and he just pinned it and took it to the line.
Yep. Yeah.
So that was the interesting thing from that one. And then Peachtree City was the next day, and this one was super technical.
Yeah.
But technical in like a different way than a crit normally is. It was a really long lap, um, long straightaways, and then kind of like a they were calling it like a dumbbell shape. So corners on either end, one downhill 180 off camber turn kind of thing that made it just brutal because you're going down a hill 180 straight back up a hill. So I think everybody knew
Mhm.
this was going to be a selective course, and this was one where it broke into at a certain point there was like not really even a peloton anymore.
Yeah, it was really Kermesse style, like not really a Peloton, groups all over the road. There was like the group had like 10 or 15 people left. Like that was
Yeah,
like the group, and then they had like 90 plus starters. So super selective. There's a
and
break up the road that ended up getting shattered. Like it was, yeah,
so it
just
blew apart pretty early, and there was a group of like six, and then a group of like four or five chasing. Interestingly, I watched it back, and like the two winners were actually not in the initial move that went up the road. They were in that group of four that bridged up, and that was Ty Magner and Evan McQuirk from Butcher Box. This is another like overarching story of the week is that I think both of us, I think we had said it on this show that we were like, who does Butcher Box even have anymore? Like
yeah,
they got Corey Lockwood last year. I guess he's still on, but like they don't have Spencer Movanzada anymore. They don't have Connor Saley anymore. Like we were just kind of running down the names that they have
yeah,
had in past years and built their team around. And they don't have a lot of those guys anymore. So turns out they do have some people. They have some
yeah.
firepower,
They
and
have a lot of it too.
yeah, they kind of put it down this year. They had a lot of
Mhm.
guys we didn't even know about, um, who were putting down results. Evan McQuirk was one that when we were having that discussion at Athens, Rob from our team was like, "Oh, Evan is good. That's like someone he knew about already." So kind of put the bug in my
Yeah,
ear, and then he pulled out a big result here at Peachtree City.
Yeah. I mean, he was super strong. Rob on our team, his wife's a pro, so he kind of like gets a little bit of insider knowledge on things a little bit of time sometimes. And he like some of these guys like Evan McCourt who are like on the come up, he's known for a while, and he's like, yeah, that guy's really really good. And we were kind of like, I recognized the name when we were looking at the Butcher Box roster, but I didn't know much about him, and definitely definitely know about him now.
Yeah.
He had a one heck of a ride.
The other one of those guys that I didn't know at all was Dustin Kalaba, a guy from he's like Eastern European, and this is his first year racing in the U.S. So a little bit of a like unknown quantity, kind of a ringer. But so ButcherBox, we were just looking. ButcherBox had the most guys in the top 10 of any men's team.
Yeah,
So four in the top 10 for the overall for the week. So really consistent and kind of surprising, honestly,
yeah.
given the level of competition. Now, I guess we're gonna have to get into now like the controversy. Right? We're going to
Yeah, we're
talking
going to.
Spartanburg.
Well, we want to say that Brendan Rim ended up winning at Peachtree Corners as well, in a
Yes.
solo move. That was a big ride from him. American Cycling, I said, like being one of the stronger teams of the whole week, between Brendan Rim, Danny Summerhill, yeah, and Michael Hernandez. But like just a strong ride. Brendan's been like in Belgium for a while, racing, came back to America, so I think the Kermesse style course really suited him, and he was able to capitalize on it.
And this was our first real look at American cycling,
Yep.
like all together as a team, kind of racing on the national stage. And I think what they proved, and kind of like a big takeaway, like on the macro level from the whole of Speedweek, is that there are a lot of teams that can hang now, and you can say like we're not seeing Legion at full power. But I don't think this is going to be like past years where we've seen kind of like Legion a full step above other teams, and then there's kind of this like second rung kind of fighting for scraps level. I think it's going to be more. I mean, Legion. We'll see when we finally do get a look. I think Tulsa, from what I've heard, Tulsa is going to be their first like all in full bore race. But
That tracks. Yeah. But yeah, I mean that's something we were talking about before the season even started in our
mm-hmm.
preseason episode was all of these teams that were kind of like knocking on the door a little bit, like starting to get there, are going to be there this year. And
Yeah,
we're going to have these teams that are not conceding to Legion, they're able to compete there. All of these little things. And that's what we're seeing. Is teams are finally able to compete on that level.
and Legion was like a cut above in the past, and I
Yep.
don't think they're going to be fully head and shoulders above the way that they have been
Yep.
in other years.
For sure.
So speaking of which, moving to Spartanburg, I guess this is another Legion thing to mention is that Legion, I guess after the first weekend, so they only had Robin Carpenter and Ty Magner out there for Athens and LaGrange. After those two, and I'm not sure if this is because Robin was doing well or if this was the plan all along, but Robin was doing well in the overall, and then they flew a couple more guys in. So
Yep.
on that Tuesday after the rest day, Justin Williams showed up and Gavin Hoover showed up. Which, if you don't know Gavin Hoover, track rider, he was on the track league that was on GCN. That's like it's kind of the like NCL of track. It's like the
Yeah.
watchable, very like highly produced product of track racing. Track Champions League. He was in the Track
Yep.
Champions League.
There we go. I was drawing a
Bef-
blank.
yeah,
I'm glad you remembered.
there's too many three-letter acronyms. There's
So many.
ACG, NCL, in LC. There's too many of them, so it's
Add a
hard to keep them
fourth letter,
straight.
people. Come on.
Yeah,
Do
or
something
just say
different.
the whole thing every time.
Right.
Yeah, Track Champions League though. So a crazy strong rider who was an interesting addition to like fly in both him and Justin. My thought with Justin was like maybe he's coming in. he's clearly not super fit right now, and I think he was maybe like, I'll come in for those midweek races and kind of like race my way into fitness a little bit. But then bringing Hoover in seemed to me like maybe they're trying to defend Carpenter. And going into, so Athens, the kind of two pillars of Speedweek are Athens and Spartanburg, at least as the schedule has been recently. So
Yep.
coming into Spartanburg, we saw Legion doing a little bit more of a Legion. Toward the end of the race, they're set up doing a full lead out with Justin on the back. So I'm not sure if Justin was going to sprint or if Justin was going to sweep, but American Cycling challenging them from both sides. Pretty nasty crash from Ty in the last corner. So who was
Yeah.
that on American Cycling that came up the inside on him?
Yeah, so that was last name's Para on American Cycling. Came up on the inside there and just sort of bumped Ty. Didn't bump him, but
We,
I mean, they made
yeah,
contact and causes Ty to go down. There's been a lot of drama about this crash.
yeah.
A lot of people have had a lot of things to say about it for
I
sure.
feel like we got to litigate the crash at least a little bit. And
Yeah,
so what I'm gonna say on the crash is like, I understand that. I guess okay. What I should start with is immediately after the crash, Justin and Corey both had some posts about how it was unacceptable and too aggressive, um, and how they were going to pursue maybe action with USA Cycling. And while I do agree that like he caused the crash, I'm just not sure. I don't think any rule was broken. I've been looking for a rule that was broken, and maybe that makes an argument of like there should be a rule against chopping someone and just flicking your rear wheel into their front wheel. To be really clear, what happens is American Cycling rider comes up the inside on Ty. Ty Magner is on the front for Legion. Kind of dives the inside of the corner, gets in front of Ty before they enter the corner, and then as they lean into the corner to begin cornering, Ty's front wheel contacts the ACG rider's back wheel, which, if you've ever touched wheels with somebody, if your front wheel hits their back wheel, that pretty much takes you out. So,
yeah.
so
I mean, watching it like this is the whole thing is that technically there wasn't a rule broken. Like it was super aggressive. And I was looking at it. You and I have both watched this crash probably 100 times a piece. And one thing that I kept noticing that I kept looking at, and it's very subtle, is there's like as Paris coming up, there's almost a glance over from Ty. It's very subtle, and I don't know if that was like him starting to look through the corner, or if it's him looking left and saying, "Okay, I'm going to start going now," so he taps his brakes and I can still win the corner. And I think like if the latter there is his thought process, 80 out of 100 guys in the field, he's right that 80 of those guys are gonna tap their brakes and let him win the corner. But none of the guys on American Cycling are those guys. And so I think I just think he maybe miscalculated there, and but either way, it was too aggressive on Para to actually try and sprint and win that corner.
yeah, the
But
more I watch it back, I do think what happened there is that Para had won the corner. Like,
yeah,
unequivocally, his bars were in front of Ty's bars. Just the way the crash happened, there's no way Para's not in front. We only have a
yeah,
straight on shot to look at, and it's kind of hard to tell looking straight on who's in front of who until they make contact, and then you can tell who's in front.
yep,
But I do think that what happened is that Ty is not really looking in his peripheral vision, and um, he doesn't see Para until it's too late. And it really was just a racing incident. Like Para was in the right in that he did win to the corner, so he didn't necessarily need to brake. But also, Ty had sort of already set up his corner. This is just the kind of like unfortunate racing incident. Like I do think Ty is probably owed an apology,
yep,
but as the rules are written now, I don't see any action that could actually be taken.
Yeah. I mean, I think we both agree that there should be some sort of rule in place if you're riding too aggressively and are causing a crash. There should be
Yeah,
some sort of like relegation there. But as the rules stand now, and like we could be wrong, and if so, like please like send us that rule because we're missing it. But there's not a rule against aggressive riding like that. There's just not.
and to be clear, everybody don't do this. Like,
Yeah, yeah.
don't
Please
don't
don't.
get out there in my race and do this. And like, I'm not trying to say it's right or anything, but also there's just I'm not sure what we could do about it. The more I watch it back, I do think that Ty Legion has been in the closing laps riding the front for so long like this, kind of unchallenged. It doesn't look like Ty has much like thought to his peripheral vision,
Yep.
and so that last couple of moments before the corner, I don't know if he doesn't hear him, but he certainly doesn't see him. It's like he just doesn't clock that there's someone there as he's starting to set up his turn, which I mean, nine more than 9 times out of 10 in the last several years, if Ty is riding the front and anyone tries to come around, A, they're going fast enough that no one can even get there, and B, there's a significant Legion train behind him that is, cutting those people off. I will say, running it back a little bit, you do see Summerhill. I initially thought this was Summerhill, but Summerhill tries to come up the outside
Yep.
before before this and gets the door shut on him by Justin. And I do wonder, like, if Summerhill had gotten up the outside and just been able to go alongside him, it's more dangerous to go on the inside of someone, I guess is what I'm trying to
Yeah.
say, than the outside. But if the outside is continually being shut on you, I don't know. It seems like ACG, their plan was like, we're gonna look for any possible open door to make our move. And
Yeah. I mean, this is the thing we're gonna see. Like both these teams, like they're all getting a paycheck to ride, so there's gonna be that willingness to take that risk by going on the inside. Um, and it's just yeah, it's an unfortunate racing incident, and like that, it's just what it was.
yeah, I think Legion's response was like a little bit beyond the pale in terms of like, oh, this is so disrespectful or whatever. But
Yeah.
it was a bad racing incident. Yeah, there he goes up the right side. Yeah, I don't think it's something that's like unsolvable the way it stands right now. There's not
Yep.
a good answer. It's something that it happened. It sucks that it happened. And so Ty went down and Robin Carpenter went down behind him. I think
Yep.
I don't think Robin raced anymore after that, or if he did.
Robin's got a broken wrist, a broken collarbone, and a couple broken ribs.
Oh man,
And
I
so
didn't.
yeah, it's pretty bad. He posted like a 4 minute Instagram clip, kind of like going over what happened and that he's injured. And I'm wondering if the Legion response, being so beyond the pale, was like obviously they're upset about the rider crashing, but I wonder if there's an added stressor there because they did use resources to send two guys over to help defend that. So I wonder if there was that added frustration that they've spent this extra money that is now no longer, like
Yeah,
essentially being wasted because now Robin's not there to defend the lead.
right.
I don't know. So
Yeah,
that's just it's weird.
I could see that being a compounding factor for sure. So that put a little bit of a stain on the finish for that day. Um, to sort of close out Speedweek, I want to move to like the overall results and talk about what we had, some kind of like overall stories and stuff. Frank Travieso got a win on the final day. He was looking good all week. He
Yep.
bridged bridged to several moves consistently near the front. Brock Mason, even with his relegation, managed a sixth place overall, so he might have been even better, if that relegation hadn't happened.
Yep.
Really good ride for him. I was surprised to see that Gibbons was in the 10 spot there. because I mean he did have a fourth at Athens, but we didn't see a ton of him at the front of these races. Otherwise,
Yeah.
that move in Athens was kind of their one, real strong move. Um,
Yeah, I think he's just such a good bike racer that he's able to, even if he's not on the front at all, he's able to kind of slot in and get these like sneaky top tens and stuff that were able to get him there. That's my theory on it because
yeah,
there's no other explanation because they weren't super on the front the rest of the week.
yeah, didn't see a ton of them. They did say that they were kind of trying things out there. I
Yeah,
think they've lost a couple. I'm not sure if Aldo is going to be back, but he was not there this week. And
yeah,
Ed Veal was a big motor for them last year, and I think he is like back with the squad, but he's coming off a big injury last year, so he
hmm
was not there either. So they were trying out a lot of new guys this week, I think, and just trying to try some different tactics and see how people were feeling in the race. Yeah, I want to call out a few other like sneaky results. Andy Scarano, a guy we've raced with in the Southeast from NGCA, he was
yeah,
12th overall, so pretty consistent. Got himself in a few moves throughout the course of the week, and
yeah.
there was one other one that I saw. Oh, Travis Clayton from Velocious Sport got himself on a podium on that second weekend, which was
Sure did.
he was consistently up there with no team at all. So
There's like if you, I mean, there's so many little sneaky like random guys who you're like, oh, he's like top 20 in the overall. That's cool. But I guess like the main thing is that Butcher Box, like 40% of the top 10 are Butcher Box guys, plus plus the win. American Cycling and Miami Knights each with two guys in the top five. I mean, it's pretty clear to see who the strongest teams were just off of that. Butcher Box, like we've talked about it earlier this episode, but just being so surprised with their ride all week. Didn't expect them to be that strong, and to see them being so consistent and dominant was really cool to see. And like it was nice, it was good to see that. Like let's
yeah,
see like a fresh team up there mixing it up with some of the big dogs.
yeah. Um, this is our first kind of seeing Miami Knights. So on the men's side, Miami Knights had a full team. Denver Disruptors on the men's side did not. So we didn't see like the full NCL thing kind of going up against everybody else. But in my mind, the Miami and ACG teams were pretty well matched.
Yeah,
And Texas Roadhouse is also looking good. I mean, I said it after the first NCL race happened, but Texas Roadhouse seemed to be the only like non NCL team that was starting to get their heads around how to race those and got themselves a win at this race. I think this is going to be a good year for them, but it's like that entire tier of teams, they're all pretty competitive.
yeah, for sure. There's like a solid like five or six teams that are right on the level, and I'm excited for watching those teams at like a Tulsa, or I mean,
Right.
I'm sure some of them will be at Sunny King next weekend, and seeing these teams continually going, back and forth and battling the trains, and I think it's going to be fun to watch. We got five or six really really strong teams.
And we didn't even see so we had Brandon Fury
Yep,
from I was gonna say the wrong team. He was on Project Echelon last year. He's on Miami
Blazers.
Blazers,
Yep.
not Miami Knights this year. He was kind of freelancing it out there and didn't see any big results from him, but I was consistently noticing him like in the mix there or thereabouts.
Yeah.
No big presence from Project Echelon here, and then I guess moving over to the other like big racing that we had over the weekend, we had Tour of the Gila, which you
Yep.
know once again not a ton of streaming and coverage. There were some good write ups from
There
Gila,
was
but
there was a stream, but it was so
for
hard to find for Gila.
for all of it or for just the crit.
That's a good question.
I
I
think it
think
might have.
I think for all of it, it was it was on like a weird. It was like one of those when you find a live stream and it's like a local news site streaming it. Like
Right.
it was such a weird thing. I want to
Yeah.
say there was a stream for all of them. I could be wrong.
Sure. Well, forgive us because we
Yeah,
were doing Speed Week stuff all week, like physically, and it takes a lot of the day to drive through Atlanta traffic and
right.
do the race and then watch a race and all. There's a lot of stuff going on for us, but I was trying to keep up with it from a distance, and uh, Team Medellin was down there. So Medellin last year was at Speed Week. This year they opted to go to Gila, which makes a little bit more sense. It's kind of a shame that these were overlapping a little bit, but
Yeah,
there were enough teams to fill out both. Superman Lopez, who we've talked about, we were theorizing that we might see Lopez at some crits this year, which would be insane. We did not see him at any crits so far. He did win stage one of Gila and then got crashed out on stage two. Speaking of like huge crash drama, there was a big crash on stage two that took a lot of people out, including him. It apparently took out like 40 people, a large percentage of the Peloton, which is
jeez.
a huge bummer. We all got to stop crashing so much.
For
Um,
real.
that was kind of one of my big goals, was just to get some races under my belt and make it through clean, which I did. So I felt pretty good about that
Yeah.
for my own results.
I
But
would say for the most part, our like 2, 3 races were pretty clean. Like there was
yeah,
a couple small, like that's normal, but there was not like a big crash, which I'll take.
yeah, and it was mostly people just pedaling through a corner and clipping a pedal, and they would just
Yeah.
slide out on their own. Um, I hope that everyone, like I've done it. I think you do it one time and you kind of learn where that limit is. Hopefully, you just got to remember like what you can and can't pedal through. But
Yeah.
at the higher level, it's seeming like a pretty crash intensive year, and I'm wondering if some of that is because there aren't teams that are just like a level above that can set a pace where everyone else is just holding on. Like when it comes to the finish, there are multiple squads that are comparably matched. So that limited real estate at the front of the race is being fought for by a larger number of guys. That's all I
Yeah.
can come up with. It seems to be true though.
Yeah, I think that's it. And plus those teams that are really strong are now starting to get paychecks.
Yeah.
So like once you factor in, okay, we're all super strong fighting for the front. Oh, and my paycheck is on the line and I'm going to get a bonus for winning this race.
Yeah.
That adds to the risk willingness
Yeah.
factor there. And so I think we're just until things kind of settle in and we sort of like people start okay coming to terms with however it needs to happen, we're going to see a little more crashing.
Yeah, there's no established pecking order yet this year, and that may be
Yeah.
kind of contributing to the problem. A couple of interesting things from Gila though. Oscar Sevilla, who's a 46, won the big stage, the Gila Monster stage, which is like
Jeez.
100 miles with like 10,000 feet of climbing
Yeah.
on that last day. And then Above and Beyond Cancer, a team that I've been aware of for a while, they got the overall win with Alex Hone. So that is a big win for them, especially with squads like Project Echelon in the mix. I assume the reason we didn't see much of Project Echelon at Speed Week is that they were over at Gila, and I would have
Yeah.
put my money on them for the win at Gila. And ironically, the only thing at Gila that they won was the crit with Cade Bickmore. So
Yeah.
they didn't go to Speed Week,
Yeah.
and then the only thing they won was a crit.
Kind of strange. Like they're the big stage race team in America, and it's just kind of funny that they won the crit. But Cade Bickmore is coming from Texas Roadhouse, so kind of makes sense for him to win the crit, but still, just kind of bizarre.
Yeah, yeah, it's one of the only like big stage races that's still happening. So that's just
It's one of the few UCI stage races left in North America, so for
this
what it's
is
worth.
yeah. This is another thing I was gonna say coming off of Speed Week is I think this is the first year that being a UCI team just doesn't matter at all anymore. I think like
Yeah,
Skyline was one of the only UCI teams at Speed Week, and like they just got absolutely demolished.
yeah.
There's
Um, I do know that Legion did renew their UCI license, by the way. So I do know that for sure. So There's a couple, but I don't. Yeah, in America, it doesn't really matter.
There, there's very little. This is like the least division we've seen between. It's like who's willing to pay for it, and interestingly, the teams that are willing to pay for it this year are not necessarily the teams that also have the most budget. I think
Yeah,
it's interesting that with all of these new crit series, um, American Crit Cup, NCL, and then another one we're going to get to in a second, maybe popping up. Well, a lot of the biggest races are not UCI races, so I think a lot of teams, and this is what I've heard, I think about like Automatic. They made a conscious decision to be like, we're not going to pay that money to re up our UCI license. We're going to dedicate that money to traveling to races that we might not have gone to that are not UCI races in many cases. So we don't need the license, frees up some budget. It makes
yeah,
sense.
yeah. I agree. Especially like you're a team that's going to be only racing in North America. Most North Americans, especially like United States of America, like they don't care. We don't have enough UCI racing for it to matter, and the UCI racing we do have, people for whatever reason don't pay as much attention to.
Right.
So if you're an America only team, you're only racing in America. I don't think it makes a ton of sense for you to have a UCI license.
Yeah, if we were comparing just like the total number of clicks and eyeballs that Athens got and Speedweek as a whole got versus Gila, I would imagine that more people are aware of the results and the storylines of Athens and of Speedweek than of Gila. That's
Yep.
just my guess, but that's kind of where I think things stand right now. Not necessarily saying that's how it should be, although, I love Speedweek, I love Athens, but that just is what it is, and I think teams are making that calculation correctly. Now, I mentioned another crit series. We said last time that CRT wasn't happening. The um, Legion, sort of the extension of Into the Lion's Den, and that was based on teams that we had talked to that were supposed to be part of it. Were kind of going through the motions of getting it up and running, and then they said in February it just kind of dropped off the face of the earth. So they all kind of took it off their schedule because they quit hearing anything about it. And then after we dropped that episode, this announcement went up on Cycling News and Velo News, all the other um, outlets, that basically there is a new league coming from Justin Williams, Legion of Los Angeles. It's called C.R.I.T, Circuit Racing International Tour. But there kind of aren't any other details here. Like I read through this whole thing, and I read through essentially the same press release turned into an article on a couple of different sites, and there are no dates, there are no, not even cities or teams, or just like there will be races at some point, maybe this year, maybe not. um
Yeah.
they're from Legion, they're called CRIT. That's kind of all we got.
Which, yeah, I mean, there's not much more we can super dive into, at least on the surface of this. But like, again, it's another crit series. If Legion's putting it on, I assume it's going to be flat four corner crits. Um,
Probably have big prize money,
yeah,
probably draw some other big. I mean, at least three of the biggest teams are going to be there. I think that's part of their
right.
rationale for having Legion of LA, Austin Aviators, Miami Blazers, is then they can half fill out a field just themselves.
True.
Um,
Yeah, I imagine some big teams will be there. I'm excited to see, what it develops into. If it's going to be that, if it's going to look like CRT with like 6 weeks or 8 weeks all back to back to back, or if it's going to be more spread out and more intentional. What cities they might choose to host. I assume it'll
right.
probably be kind of West Coasty
Because
for
we
the.
talked about an initial calendar that we had seen that had been floating around with teams and with event organizers that kind of put that whole thing really late in the season. But I would
Yeah.
be really surprised if they're going to try and pull that off this year. There's not a lot of time left in the year this year, huh? I mean,
There's not. I mean, unless they're holding their cards really close to their chest and everything's all done and set in stone, and we just don't know. But I I don't. I just don't know. I don't.
yeah, I would be surprised. It
Yeah.
does sound like if they're trying to get other teams involved, the teams that I've talked to, even that were aware of it up to a point, kind of wrote it off their schedule because it fell off and it seemed like it wasn't happening. So
Yeah.
then the day after that article comes out, an article comes out on Cycling Weekly that's basically this guy Wasserman claiming that he was a part of this and that the idea was stolen from him. So that he was like pitching this with Williams and had started a company, started an LLC to work on this with Williams, and then kind of the prizes just stopped, or the meetings, the communication just kind of stopped coming in about it in February, which that correlates with what I've heard from teams about kind of when things went silent. Um, I'm not sure how much of this is. It sounds like this was a guy they were working with. I'm not sure
Yeah.
how much of the idea you can say is stolen when the idea, until we get more details, there may be more details that, there's some kind of proprietary specific thing that has been lifted from his idea, but it sounds like just the idea is to have crits in major cities, and that's like less specific than a lot of the NCL stuff to me.
Yeah.
Like
You can't own having crits in major cities.
right,
So that's I'm one. So CRT might have been the Wasserman thing, and then when that kind of dissolved, that's when we heard, okay, it's not happening. So maybe that's sort of what that whole deal was.
and yeah, maybe that's what happened, and then this latest article is just Justin trying to like plant a flag in the ground that like that round fell through, but I'm still trying to do this.
Yeah, I I have a feeling that's sort of what this is. There's something in my gut saying that that's what happened here.
The
But
lack of details, like extreme lack of details in that original article, makes me think that they're maybe at a little bit of a reset point in terms of like what they're going to do with forming this league and getting it up and going. I have said before, and I'm going to continue to be on this train, that like I don't love the idea of the league being owned by a specific person who is competing. Like I don't have a problem with it being more of a franchise model where like all of the teams collectively own it or something, but
yeah,
in this model where like kind of Legion or someone from Legion is sort of the boss or the owner or the main impetus for the thing happening, it just it sets up like it would be weird if Tom Brady owned the NFL, you know what I'm saying, and
right,
was still quarterbacking. Like that's what I
right.
keep coming back to.
And I
I feel
mean,
like
I don't like if Justin Williams is going to own this. I don't have an issue Justin Williams owning this. I just have an issue with him owning it, owning three teams in it, and also racing.
right, and I think his maybe what he's trying to get to. I've speculated about this before. Is I think what they're maybe trying to get to is a point where they own all of the teams, and maybe they're not even racing anymore, like Justin and Corey,
Yeah,
which would make sense. But it's like that in between, and I think that's what NCL is trying to get to as well, is a point where like all of their teams are in house.
yeah,
Um, but I mean, you saw it with Lions Den. They won their own race, and we're seeing it with NCL so far. Like the endemic teams are winning the NCL races. Uh, it's just a weird. I'm not saying they're like rigged or anything, but it sets up an incentive structure where it's like, you're our teams. These are our races. We can formulate them in a way that works for you, or even just like these teams take them the most seriously. It just doesn't make it like the most competitive even field or something.
yeah,
There's like a non-competitive kind of like feel to that.
yeah. Like you can make the rules to favor you, right? Like you
Right.
can make them all flat four corner crits, and you can make them, set up X, Y, and Z, and you can not change the rules, but just set yourself up in an environment to where you're more likely to win.
Right. I guess my point is not that they are even doing that. My point is that you could, and the fact that you
Yeah,
could is a problem
I agree. Yeah,
more than anything else. Um, so we'll see what even happens with that. That may not be something. I know they were planning to try and do it this year. I don't think we're going to see it this year. It would be a real stretch. And
yeah.
if it does happen, it's going to be in cyclocross season, and I'm going to be paying attention to cyclocross.
I
So
say that's a big thumbs down for you.
yeah, that's a no go for me. There is one more like fun thing we want to cover before we get out of here for this week, which is Matteo Jorgensen coming through with some big results over in Europe.
Yeah, yeah, huge. One of the main Grand Tour prep races, like if you're going to the Tour de France, you usually do Tour of Romandy, um, or like it's just a Grand Tour prep stage race. Really, Matteo Jorgensen coming out with the Young Riders jersey for the whole week, and getting second overall on the GC to Adam Yates. Like Egan Bernal was in the field, Damiano Caruso.
Yeah, we've talked a lot about, American riders being able to go to that level, and it's interesting seeing riders like Oscar Sevilla coming over to America and racing, and Superman Lopez racing in America. There's something to be said for the fact that we have racing where you don't have to go to Europe anymore, but also we do want to see the young talent that is geared like physiologically for that European racing being able to make the jump.
Yeah,
We saw some of the EF kids, Enzo Hincapi, some of the other EF kids. We had a gorgeous George sighting at Athens. He was out there.
yeah, yeah. The EF kids are kind of poised for that European trajectory. Um, like someone from Birmingham, Riley Oberding is currently riding and racing in Girona on the U.S. national team, but he's on that EF junior Onto team.
Yeah, that seems to be a good pathway for them. I was actually interested to see. I think some of it is just that those. I think they were only at Athens and Spartanburg, which are the biggest ones. But
Yeah,
I think that was just a thing of like there are some really big bike races with national and international fields close to us. But that team is
yeah.
not as focused on like domestic American crit racing. They're kind of more focused on stage racing and getting overseas and stuff. But
Well, I mean,
yeah,
even in like during the week, Julian Rue, who won two of our 2-3 races, were I think if he didn't win, like he was on in racing Junior Tour of Ireland. So like so DDP sent some kids to Tour of Ireland, and like so I mean they're like that's the kind of talent that we're seeing at some of these big crits, kids that are going to Ireland and Belgium and France.
I'm gonna say that's like the hopeful note I want to end on this week. I guess is I
Sure,
did
sure.
notice that this was like the youngest year, and maybe it's just that I'm getting older, but this was the year that like I felt old at Speedweek and at Twilight. Like all of the fields, it seemed like were generally average age, much younger.
All right.
So yeah, on that note, a lot of great young talent we hope to see continuing to come up as we get old. You got anything else for this week, Ben?
No, that's it. Next episode, we'll talk about Sunny King a little bit, sort of get into some of the more spread out stuff, as this has sort of been like the peak of the Southeast crit season. Um,
Yeah,
and then we'll get more of
yeah, we're
that.
not even done yet.
No, no.
We will be out at Sunny King this weekend too.
Yeah,
So if
we
you're at
will.
Sunny King, say what's up. We'll be racing the 2-3, and then hanging out watching the pro race.
Yeah,
But yeah, we'll definitely have plenty more stuff for next time.
yeah.
See you guys then.
Make
Oh
sure to like, subscribe,
yeah.
follow, comment,
Ah,
all that stuff, please.
yes, yes. Thank you. See you guys next time.
Peace.
Thanks.